figured that for the holidays I would do a video of a street that works well. This is the corner of Inman and Harvard Street in Cambridge. These are two low traffic, relatively low speed streets. One of them is one way, Inman, which is about to go right now. And the other one, Harvard, actually becomes one way about a block down. Now, what's interesting about this is that it's a really short cycle. So we're about to watch Harvard end, and you can see someone crossing the street here. They have enough time to make it across, even with a few seconds. And so this is the beginning of the cycle with Harvard Street going. And there's a walk signal. Goes down 6 seconds because it's only the streets. This street's about 20 feet wide. This one's about 30, maybe 30. And then the Inman Street goes. People can cross, cars can go, plenty of throughput, but it's a short street, short crossing. And so now this cycle is walk. This has 9 seconds to clear and then goes to 0. So this is relatively short. And so all told, this is a 45-second cycle, and it's about equal time for both streets, which means that no one ever has to wait more than about 25 seconds with their pedestrian and about 20 seconds if they're driving to get across. It's ample time. This just shows why narrow streets are better for everyone, and everyone has a quick journey. The one other thing is that this is a pretty good illustration of the leading pedestrian interval. So I'll show that in a second, but and then the other nice thing is when I'm doing a video, I have plenty of time to talk about all of the things because I don't have to wait for 30 or 45 seconds for a light cycle to end. The leading pedestrian interval is that the pedestrian light will come on. In this case, I think it's 3 seconds before the light changes green. So as you watch here, that goes, so 1, 2, 3, and then the light changes green. What that means is that a pedestrian who's waiting, instead of walking out at the exact same time as a car that may be turning, the pedestrian waits, the light turns, they're actually in the middle of the roadway, much more visible by the time the light changes. Now everyone here is generally looking and seeing what's going on and crossing ahead of the vehicles, but for people who are waiting, this gentleman actually waited for the vehicle, but for people who are waiting, it's safer because they're in the crosswalk, they're more visible to that car rather than starting at the same time. The other thing I might point out about a short light like this, no one's really impatient, so people will wait for each other. Pedestrians will wait for the vehicles. So these folks now, they're in the middle of the intersection when the light changes, so if that car was going right, they would see the people rather than be taking right into them as they step off the curb. So no one's really impatient. No one's been waiting. No one feels like they missed the light cycle and now they have to wait 2 or 3 minutes. It's a 20 to 30 second wait at most. Really efficient, changes really quickly. I don't have a lot of time to talk about things. And the leading pedestrian interval means that, as you see here, people were most of the way across. That car was able to wait to turn, but not wait very long. And that's the beauty of leading pedestrian intervals and narrow streets and quick cycles. And narrow streets beget quick cycles because the minimum length of a cycle, here's someone who didn't try to run a red light because they know it's a short cycle. The minimum length of a cycle is set by the pedestrian time. And if you have a wide street, an 80 or 100 foot wide street, you need to have a walk signal, and then you need to have somewhere along the lines of 20, 25 seconds to clear that walk signal, sometimes longer. Here, where we only need 6 to 9 seconds, it's a really quick process. So it's a street, neither of these are particularly heavily trafficked streets, but they are both through streets. They do take people from places they want to be to places they want to go. But if you have narrow streets and you don't have high traffic volumes, this probably could be a stop sign, but it's not. It's a traffic signal that just works really well for everyone. One other thing that I am going to point out is, there's another leading pedestrian interval. It's 3 seconds. Most of Cambridge is 3 seconds. There are a few places in Cambridge that are 5 seconds, but most are 3. One other thing I'm going to point out in a moment is there is a second of dead time. So both lights will be red before the pedestrian signal comes on. There it was. I'll show you the next one in just a second. And I won't have to wait very long because of how this works. So I'm going to actually scroll up here so you can see both of the lights and the pedestrian. So there's actually the 1 second when the light goes off, plus 3 seconds before traffic goes. And if you're a savvy cyclist, all right, ready, set, So here's the 1 second. Now the light changes. 1, 2, 3, and now that light changes. If you're a savvy cyclist and you don't mind bending the rules, you can actually get to a red light and know that you have 4 seconds in Cambridge. At most lights in Cambridge, this is something to do if you know what's going on, that you have 4 seconds before that light's gonna change. You can also see there are a lot of people here who are crossing against the light, but it's low speed roadways. You know, it's narrow roadways, people aren't flying down them. And so if you have a pretty good view, you can make that view. You know, here's a time where we have no one coming on Inman Street. Not a lot of wasted time because it really is only about a 45-second cycle. It's only 22, 23 seconds per street. It's plenty enough to get traffic through. Here's someone who's gonna, you know, push that red light, which is maybe a reason not to push lights too much. But plenty of capacity for this roadway, narrow streets, low speed streets. It's really a pleasure to interact with lights like this. So again, we have the leading pedestrian interval, we have the second of dead time, but we have a narrow cycle with a short crossing light, and something that really works well for most of the users of the street. So I'm usually complaining about lights, and this is one that works pretty well.